Welcome back to the Good Eye Podcast. My name's Jay Smack, and today my guest is Josh Sloan. Josh is from SPORTable, and SPORTable is an organization that strives to make sports available and accessible to people with physical disabilities. They help people with disabilities see beyond the disabilities. They also engage with the community. They engage them with the community, and they allow the community to engage with people with disabilities through sports and activities. And they change views of people with disabilities. Sometimes able-bodied people may not think that people with disabilities can participate in certain sports. That is not true, and SPORTable is making that obvious. Josh talks all about all of that stuff and more. He's a fascinating guy with a hell of a spirit, and he's a great athlete too. So let's talk to him and find out more about SPORTable on today's Good Eye Podcast. And Josh Sloan, welcome to the Good Eye Podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm glad this finally worked out. I think I mentioned, and strangely enough, while I was on the SPORTable website, I was surfing around a little bit, and there's a picture of the Synapse meeting that I was at when I first met you. And
yeah, we need to update that. That's a pretty old picture at this point.
No, don't take my picture off. No, it's got my back to it, but I was like, hey, that's the meeting where I met Josh, and said, hey, man, come do my podcast. And since then, you are, of course, with SPORTable Richmond. Why don't we knock out the particulars here, and then we'll get into some wrapping and find out about it. Why don't you tell everybody about who you are, what you do with SPORTable, and what SPORTable is?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my name's Josh Sloan, which we've already said millions of times. I don't know why I mentioned that again, but it's fun. Like you just mentioned before we started the actual show, I'm used to the elevator pitch and saying my name as part of the elevator pitch. Anyway, so yeah, I'm with SPORTable. I'm the volunteer and outreach coordinator, and what SPORTable is we're an adaptive sports nonprofit. So we provide sports to people with physical disabilities and visual impairments. What that looks like is very similar to any sport club you may have been a part of as a kid or now. We hold weekly practices. Those practices lead up to competitions, or for some folks, they don't want to be in the competitions. They just want to get out and regularly exercise. So we do a little bit of both and a little bit of everything, because if you have physical disability, there's a 96% chance when it comes to our athletes anyway, that participating in these sports is not something you could do on your own because of lack of access to equipment, lack of access to teams to play against, lack of access to people to play with, whatever it may be. There's a lot of barriers to people with physical disabilities being able to participate in sport. So we, specialize in breaking down those barriers. We've got 13 different sports that we offer year round. Like I say, a little bit of everything. It's recreational, competitive, outdoor, indoor, team, individual. So cycling, rowing, kayaking, archery, basketball, lacrosse, rugby, swimming, a little bit of everything is kind of what we try to offer. Because, again, we got to try to offer something for the widest range of people out there. Yeah, that's the basics of it.
I got to imagine that when people find you, people with disabilities who perhaps maybe there was some sort of accident or something and they lost full use of their body, and maybe they were active before that incident happened, when they find you guys, they must just be ecstatic. As somebody who's pretty active myself, I like cycling and hiking and camping and things like that. And what's the reaction like when people find out about SPORTable and the resources you guys offer?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's like you mentioned, there's a lot of folks that have something happen, and then there's a lot of folks that are born with some kind of disability. And I think those two sort of like revelations tend to be different. For a lot of the folks that I've talked to who were born with their disability, it's like a camp experience tends to be how they learn about adaptive sports. So wherever they grow up, there's like a weekend camp, and they go and they try all this different stuff that like their parents never understood that really existed or that they'd have access to. And then they end up falling in love with that sport or that, basically that whatever that organization kind of tends to be in their region, and they pick a couple of sports with them, and then that becomes where they do that from the time they're a kid, through adulthood, unless they move. And then when they move, they tend to, find somewhere new to do it. So their stories really tend to be really, really similar in a lot of ways to like an able-bodied athletes, where it's like when you were a kid, you played Little League, and that's where you made your first friends, and those, and that experience led you to want to, play sports throughout high school. And then some people wanted to maintain, like some level of either competitive sport or just like recreational sport through college, or if they did, whatever it is, like that initial experience as a kid gets people to like fall in love with this stuff. And like you're saying, I mean, particularly a lot of these kids don't understand what's out there, and their parents don't understand what's out there. And it's like the first time you try to explain to the parent of a kid with a disability, like, oh, well, does he ride a bike? And they're like, he can't ride a bike. And you're like, I know, but like, he can. We've got the bike that he can ride. It's built for him. Like, it's designed for him to be able to independently ride it. And they're like, oh, they don't really believe you. But then you put the kid onto the bike, and the kid starts riding the bike, and the kid's smiling, and the parents like just lose it because this light bulb finally goes off. And it's like, really, it's such an experiential thing that the key to it, I really think, is having to try it. And that's the same with people who have acquired disabilities. Like, man, when you like, I mean, I had a spinal cord injury when I was 20, I don't even, 23, 24. It's like right around my birthday. It's like 6 years, going on 6 years ago. And you're so inundated with like so much information about, oh, you'll do this and you'll do that, and everybody and their brother wants to tell you about some like stem cell thing they know about. You get all this stuff from so many, and you're hit from so many directions, and you don't know like what to listen to or not or whatever. And it's, for me personally, I kind of approached adaptive sports the same way that some of those parents did. It's kind of like, yeah, I understand that's there, but like it's not really for me anymore. Like this is not, or it's like that's cool and all, and it's cool that that's out, that those things are out there, but like, and then you like get on a bike for the first time, like a hand cycle for the first time, and you're like, oh, like this thing actually goes fast and like operates like a bicycle, and I can do that, and I can like turn it and feel G forces and have adrenaline rushes like I used to have back in the day. This is dope. Like this is really fun. For me, it's not so much when people first hear about it, it's when they first try it.
Yeah.
A light goes off and they're just like, whoa, this is like, or like the first time you try like a competitive team sport and you go to your first tournament, it's like, whoa, like this is, everyone out here is like really getting after it. And if you're not like fully dialed in and focused and like really trying, like, and you're feeling those, like, it was super funny, honestly, at like rugby tournaments. There's all these people who maybe they played some team sports in high school, like most people. Maybe you played some little league or whatever, and then some people continue to play through high school. But then most people don't play team sports as adults as much as they do, say, like cycling or, hiking. So it's kind of the stuff you mentioned. So when people get involved with rugby, it's so funny because it's like you have that, I had forgotten at least what that like competitive drive to like be playing in an actual official competitive game with a team is like your teammates are like, you're like communicating with each other, and like people are getting mad, and like there's all these different emotions, and it's nuts. It's like a whole world that you like forget exists if you don't participate in it or haven't since, I mean, I stopped playing team sports when I was like in like 9th grade, so I had forgotten how like emotionally intense that stuff is. Like it's really wild. It's kind of like heady in a way because like you're dealing with all these different personalities, and if you're not used to working with a team like that, it requires a lot more finesse than I think people that don't play team sports give it credit. At least I didn't before I started
And
playing
the
again.
connection,
Yeah,
the connection you feel with people, no matter what you're doing, in a group
yeah, yeah.
or a common understanding, it's so important.
Because you're going through something together.
Hmm.
Like playing in a game and like losing or winning, you gain a connection with those people because you guys like either suffered or you know won, and those kind of experiences connect people in like a really powerful way.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
even people that you wouldn't necessarily, it's like you're like I don't know if I would even know these people if it weren't for this, but you're like so close with them. Again, I don't know if it's because to me it's because like those game experiences are so intense and like how much like the dedication to coming to practice regularly and stuff.
You
It's
know,
pretty cool.
that's so important with what you guys do on a larger scale. I mean, outside of the game, just that connection and the common experience, and people get together. And as I look on the website, what you guys offer, and this is just in the sports, not to say nothing, and we'll get to that of the outreach programs and the school programs that you have, but archery, cycling, fitness, goal ball, kayaking, power soccer, road racing and running, rock climbing. It's incredible. Wheelchair rugby, wheelchair lacrosse, and one guy, just to mention one person in particular. Oh, and I didn't mention, I was getting to it, but you're also the host of the SPORTable Podcast, and you do a hell of a job there.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it's been really fun. We kind of was like a born of COVID situation. It happened very sort of like organically. I figured out that you could record Zoom calls, and so I wanted to record a Zoom call with one of our athletes. It's also like a big disability advocate in the area or in the region, and so we recorded it. And I was hoping it was going to be like this sort of like a 10-minute check in. Of course, it was like an hour-long conversation, and it was just like I know what this is. This is an episode of a podcast. And so I just, made it into an audio file and got some help from some friends that have done this kind of stuff. And yeah, I think I've got like 11 episodes out now. I was doing them weekly, but we kind of made it more of like a sporadic thing. But it's been really fun. Just everyone is a really big deep dive into one of our athletes. So, I mean, as of right now, there's not a single person who is recording, interviewing, or being interviewed on that show that is not like disabled themselves. So I think that's really important. Honestly, you don't. I think with any like community, people should be telling their own stories. So
Yeah,
that's kind
telling your story, um, and a podcast is a great format for that, because it's so raw and it's so personal. It's like you and I are just sitting here rapping. We're not fighting time. We don't have
of
6.5 minutes, at 5:30 a.m. or something. And the individual I was going to mention, because I got stuck on that episode, and his story is really compelling, is Chris Marston.
yeah.
That was really cool. That's your July 31st episode. Talk about him a little bit. He's a triathlete. Was training for Tokyo, but that got screwed up because of COVID and the national championships. But talk about him for just a second.
Yeah, so he's still working at it. Chris is like, I guess in the grand scheme of things, kind of new to us, and it was kind of a bummer because really when he first started to get involved with Sportable was like before kind of the big shutdown, or close to it. But so Chris has been training for triathlons, and this is something that through the podcast I've learned happens a lot since he saw the Paralympics on TV. He was born with his disability, um, and he was watching the Paralympics, I think in 2016 or 2012, and saw the triathlon thing and was like, I'm pretty fast runner. He like grew up doing cross country. I'm pretty fast runner. Like, I bet you I could. He was looking at the times that the guys in the Paralympics were getting, and he was like, I can probably do that. And he just started training. And he's been like at it ever since. And then he heard about us through our cycling coach, who I can't speak highly enough of. Her name's Lucille O'Neill. She's a physical therapist at the Children's Hospital. And she just kept encouraging him to come to like our competitive cycling program because, again, she's the coach, so it's a natural fit. And yeah, he's gotten involved, and I mean, the guy is, endurance athletes are another breed. He did 15 triathlons in 15 days.
Good
I think
God.
I talked to him on like the second or third day, and he was already like, "Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard." And I'm like, "Dude, like,
Yeah, no
yeah, it's
kidding.
hard." Like, are you kidding me? Like how are you going to finish that? But I mean, yeah, he knocked him out with no problem. So that was super cool. And then, like you say, Tokyo's, I don't know what's going on there, but you know, if he makes the team or and all that, and he's been to the training camp for Team USA, but once you're on the roster, I mean, you're pretty much well on your way, and he'll end up doing international competitions outside of the Paralympics as well. So it'll be a really wild ride for him, I think, once things open up again.
It was cool. He was talking about, he has trouble, and correct me if I'm wrong, his disability is cerebral palsy. Is that right?
Yeah, basically. Cerebral palsy is an interesting diagnosis because it's very much like an umbrella thing.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, and honestly, you'd have to listen back to the episode to get this exactly right, but as I understand it, I think that there was something that happened like while he was like in utero, and that is what caused him to have like the what is like diagnosed as cerebral palsy, but it was something stroke like,
Mm-hmm.
I think happened to him like as a like before he was born or right after he was born or something.
But he was having trouble changing gears or using the brake, and you guys hooked him up and adapted his bike. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's something that is a huge part of what we do and what adaptive sports in general do, right? Like that's it's like well, now I'm getting losing my train of thought. You've got to finding the right piece of equipment that fits somebody properly
Mm-hmm.
is so necessary in like maximizing their potential. It's the same way if, say, like the first time you go hiking, if you've never been hiking before, and somebody's like, you should come hiking. Like, well, just wear your tennis shoes.
Right.
Just wear a pair of tennis shoes, and it's fine. And you do like a little 2 mile out and back, and it's fine. Well, then all of a sudden, if you want to like backpack the Appalachian Trail, you need to go to the store and you need to buy a very nice, highly specialized pair of hiking boots that someone is like fitted to you. Or if nobody's fitted to you, you know what you're doing enough to buy a pair that's a decent pair. So it's like that, just more so. There are bikes for people who have limited mobility in their legs. There are bikes for people that have no mobility in their legs. There are bikes for people that have limited mobility in their hands, like I do. There are bikes that have, I mean, everything. So it's, and not just bikes, right? It's any of these sports, or even a kayak. I mean, my kayak is highly adapted. And I think the best rule of thumb for that is you want to give people the least amount of stuff possible so that they can maximize like whatever they've got going on to do it independently and to do it, by themselves. You want to allow for that and just provide whatever kind of adaptation to maximize their ability to do what they can on their own, basically.
That's a really good point. Gear, the larger subject of gear, is so important to anybody who's doing a sport or an activity.
Yeah.
And you want that fine balance where you're maximizing the activity, but you have the equipment that's as good as it can be without doing it for you. A good example is e-bikes, electric bikes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, and there's a lot of controversy around them because they help people get into it. Somebody's like, you go out to the Capitol Trail and you start at Rockets Landing, and you hit that first hill. Well, somebody who's just getting back into biking is going to look at that hill and say, forget this, I'm not doing it. Well, that e-bike could be the difference between somebody staying in the sport and giving it up. But if you've been cycling your whole life and you're a racer, you resent it because it's doing a little bit of the work for you. So that balance is so subtle.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very controversial on mountain biking, especially on like single track mountain bike trails, because if somebody opts to essentially, you can use a thumb throttle and just crank it up a hill without even pedaling. And if you're going to run into somebody or try to pass them as they're actually struggling to pedal up the hill, I mean, you talk about resentment. I mean, that's like, dude, get off your dirt bike is like, but it's really, e-bikes are unfortunately very expensive. But I mean, they are so good for the adaptive sports world when it comes to cycling. I mean, you take somebody who has limited use of the muscles in their arms, who can pedal a hand cycle, and can maybe pedal and do like, 8 miles in an hour and a half, right? And you give them an e-bike that gives them a boost, and they're all of a sudden they can go ride with their able-bodied friends now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Exactly.
huge deal. So there's a lot of the controversy makes sense, and I get it, but there's so much benefit to e-bikes. Like, look, there's a lot of people with invisible disabilities, people with MS. Look, man, you give somebody with MS an e-bike, that's gonna make them like that. If they're having a bad day, that's gonna make that so much better, because like the nature of that disability is so unpredictable when it terms like pain. When is pain gonna flare up? When are you gonna get tired? When are you gonna be weak? You don't know. So if you're out and you're a, like, highly competitive athlete cycling, and you're like 15 miles from your car, and all of a sudden you feel like crap, being able to have that extra little boost is a big deal.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the bottom line for me when it comes to the e-bike thing, more people on bikes. They might have disabilities, they might be trying to get into shape, they might be a little bit older, they might have an injury of some sort, but it's more people on bikes. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Um, Man, if people are familiar with you guys, they may not realize that this is your 15th year. I only found out about Sportable probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And that's really cool. And started by a VCU student, right? Who,
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. So, it was it's kind of weird because it was really two people, and but Kristen Lessig is the one that,
mhm.
after they started it, she became the first executive director and really like kept it going in its infancy. So we typically called her the founder. I think technically that was two people though. So she was working as I believe, a rec therapist or a physical therapist at the VA hospital, but also getting her master's, I think, in education at VCU. And for a project for that, she wanted to start, essentially like a some kind of adaptive sport program. It didn't really matter what. It was basically this one kid in the area who had a physical disability but no cognitive disability, and really didn't wasn't a good fit for what was available, which is like Special Olympics and Buddy Ball and stuff, which we love those organizations, but it's just not a perfect fit. And so the first sport she started was power soccer, basically because if you have a power chair, all you have to do is put a guard on the front, so it was the cheapest one to start.
Mm.
And then it just grew from there, and it really grew from what the athletes that she was working with were asking for. It's like, we want to play wheelchair basketball, and it's like, okay, well then we'll start a wheelchair basketball team, or we want to cycle, so okay, well then we'll get some bikes. And it was all very, very grassroots. And the cool part of it was to get the initial funding to start, I think, the youth basketball team it was, which is a lot because you got to buy, minimum 10 chairs to have a scrimmage, and each chair is $2,500. So she got a grant awarded to purchase that equipment, and that grant came from the VA. Well, she worked at the VA, so she had to quit her job so that there wasn't a conflict of interest, so that she could accept the grant to purchase the equipment. So she took a huge leap of faith.
Oh, wow. I never made that connection. That was 2008, right? When,
5.
it was right off the bat.
Or yeah, no, I guess it was 2000. Sorry, yeah, you're right. You're right. That was 2008.
Wow.
But
So she quit her job to be eligible to take the grant.
yeah, and then that is really like, and then just kind of like hit the ground running from there. Um, and just like I say, just would add sports really more than anything based off of athlete interest. And uh, from there, we've just grown every year. Current executive director Hunter Lehman took over in, I think, 2013, when Kristen had to move out of the area. Um, and yeah, I mean, we've been keeping at it since.
Um, I want to get into some of the programs, but I want to make sure we mention some of the events coming up. You got a couple pretty close together. One of them's the golf tournament, benefiting Sportable, October 8th, and I know Synapse is involved with that as well. But that also benefits Make a Wish, Relationship Foundation, and you guys, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's going to be really fun. So that is the Synapse. They call it the RVA Charity Golf Tournament, and that's their event. We were lucky enough to be chosen as one of the 3 nonprofit beneficiaries. As you said, we met through Synapse, and so that should be anybody involved in the Synapse network. That's who's going to be out there. It should be really fun for that whole crew. And it's out. Oh man, I'm so bad at details.
I should have it pulled up. I should actually know it off the top of my head. I've got it right here. Jump over here.
Magnolia Green.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's a Magnolia Green. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Like I say, I'm not good at detail.
Yeah, I should.
But yeah, no, it's that's gonna be really fun. And then we've got our big sort of like annual fundraiser coming up, which is the RVA Tailgate, and that is typically an in-person event, but we're calling it the remote edition this year. So typically it's a big field party where everybody gets together, our athletes, our volunteers, our supporters, everybody comes together and we have a huge party. Now we can't really do that. Yeah. So what we're doing instead is people are going to have small little get-togethers in their, sort of like COVID bubble, if you will, at their own houses. And we send party supplies, decorations, yard signs, recipes for tailgate food and drink, all that kind of stuff to make sure it's a good party. And then people, will just bring over people that, they feel comfortable around. I mean,
right.
It's like you got kind of your group of folks that you're around, and everybody has the same comfort levels and all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to make sure that we are still able to have the tailgate, but do it in a way that's safe and responsible. So you can get all the information about that at rvatailgate.org. And then, you can always, since I'm not good at recalling information, you can always go to rvacharity.golf.org for Synapse golf tournament. And then, not to talk about more golf tournaments, but we also have a golf tournament that is being put on basically by us, called the Wayne Samford Memorial Tournament. And that one is at a time that exists.
November 2nd.
November 2nd.
At the Dominion Club.
At the Dominion
That
Club.
one I did write down.
Yeah, now we're talking. So we got a lot going on this fall. A lot of ways to get involved, sponsorship opportunities, etc. And then, the other thing, other than coming to golf tournaments and having parties, we're always looking for volunteers, which I think is a really rewarding experience. Kind of the way that I was talking about how much I feel like a part of a team now that I've been playing rugby. I feel like our volunteers really get that same experience if you kind of become dedicated to it. It's a cool experience. This becomes like a little, it's like part of your network of friends almost. Become like the athletes that you help and the other volunteers that you're with, and it's a really cool community, I think, to be a part of. So it tends to be a little bit bigger commitment than your average volunteer day of volunteering. We do have some one-on-off opportunities sometimes, but more often than not, our volunteers are committing to a couple of months once a week. So like a 2-month stretch, like once a week, where you would meet and help out with one of our programs for an hour and a half, 2 hours in the evenings during the week, or sometimes weekends, mostly evenings during the week. And that really spans across all of our programs. Some of them, we need more people, particularly the individual sports. Cycling, we basically need like a 1-to-1 ratio of volunteers to athletes. Others, we're really looking for folks more to a small core group of volunteers who are really going to be committed and kind of be part of the team. even like going to like coaching roles and helping with scrimmaging and running drills and stuff like that. So yeah, like I say, it's a weird time. We're doing a lot of programming right now, but it's all outdoors. It's all socially distant. It's masked up and all that. But we still need volunteers right now. So
Speaking of getting involved, what are some of the school programs that you guys have going on? And that's another thing that I was a little surprised to see how much is going on.
yeah, absolutely,
And
man.
are those still active given this weird time?
So I wish that I'm hoping that they will be. I'm I'm hoping that we can to get some stuff set up virtually for school programs. Um, Nothing really happened at the end of last school year after the shutdown because you know everything shut down. But yeah, I'm hoping that they rev back up. That's a program that I really head up, and we go into K through 12 schools in the area, and we teach disability etiquette classes as well as just raise awareness about disability, raise awareness about adaptive sports, and just try to, you know, bring awareness about this whole world that I don't think a lot of people know about. Um, so I think it's a really great program. Like I say, I miss doing them because haven't been able to in a while. But we're hoping to get something, on the books virtually. But yeah,
The
typically we speak to a lot of schools.
the
Sorry.
inclusion in disability etiquette training, I thought that was really cool. Can you talk about that a little bit? What people could expect from something like that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So basically, it it's pretty simple. I think of it as something that when you see someone on the street with a disability, visible disability, right? Something you can look at and see that it's there. There's like a knee jerk reaction that you might have to it. If you back out of that and you look at this from very far away in a more rational kind of way, it's all very obvious, right? And I say that because when I go into schools and I ask like first graders, how they think people with disabilities want to be treated, it's not very hard for me to get someone to say like everybody else.
Hmm.
And that's really the basics of disability etiquette is that people with disabilities just want to be treated like regular people because, we are regular people and I just don't, it's pretty simple. Like I'm very well versed in and know like a lot of specifics that I can impart to people. Things like, you know, not insisting on helping someone, how to like accurately respond to a request for help, and like follow directions. Things that you just wouldn't think about that are polite, such as introducing yourself to a person that's blind every time you see them, regardless of whether or not you would assume that they would know you by voice. Um, so there's a lot of little things like not like don't touch people's adaptive equipment, be mindful of people's boundaries, stuff like that we get into. But again, I mean the basic thesis of disability etiquette is like just if you don't know, I mean you can just pretend like you don't even see that they have a disability, and it'll probably be a much better conversation. Because again, people want to be treated like they're going about their everyday life, which they are.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty simple.
And
But
if they're curious or have questions or confused, ask. You know.
yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, see, it depends, right? It depends on the circumstances. Um, it You don't necessarily want to like if you're with someone that you know, it's cool to ask questions, but
Oh,
like you
I
also
think I was just getting, and not to cut you off, I want you to finish that thought. I was
probably
just thinking of, is it okay if I give you a hand? And somebody might be like, no, I got it.
yeah, and that's fine, right? But
Yeah.
and then don't be offended if they say no
Yeah.
is another that thing that people tend to run into. I guess but the thing that you don't want to do is like people don't want to feel like they're in like a fishbowl and you're outside the fishbowl poking it. And sometimes like a bunch of questions at a party is like, dude, like why are you even talking to me? What are we even
Right.
talking about? Like I'm
Right.
not like I'm so don't feel like you can't talk. That's what I guess that's what I'm saying is don't you shouldn't feel like you can't talk to people or that you should like ignore them because you shouldn't. But I also don't really think I don't want people to go out of their way to like speak to me in the grocery store. I find it patronizing.
Yeah, right. That's where the etiquette comes in. That's exactly my point.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Um, and how about your veteran partners? I definitely want to mention that because there's so many veterans who return from service and sometimes acquire a disability.
Absolutely.
And you guys are working with or associated with a number of regional veterans associations.
Yeah, so we partner with the McGuire VA, with uh, Veterans and Athletes United, with the Wounded Warrior Project, and with, I mean, many other veteran groups. And there's one that is on the tip of my tongue that I cannot think of, and I feel really bad. But the executive director's name is Aaron Green, and I really need to think of what it's called. But yeah, so we work with all of them, and all of our programs are open to veterans. We also run some veteran-only programs from time to time as well. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The veteran community is always in need of these kinds of services because of the nature of what veterans do for a living or did for a living. I mean, it's just unfortunately part of it. But I mean, honestly, speaking from my perspective, I always say this because I think very highly of the VA when it comes to how they take care of their veterans with permanent disabilities. I mean, they do really great work over there. Those people are very my friends that are veterans are very well taken care of, and I think it's pretty awesome to see. I don't know.
No, they absolutely should be, and it's there are cases where it's tragic that they're not. But
Oh, no question, no question.
that the old adage of "some gave all,"
Yeah,
it doesn't get any more stark than that. But some of the organizations on your website are the PVA.
that's the one I'm trying to say.
That's it. Paralyzed veterans.
Yeah, Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Well, there's a number of them on there. Wounded Warriors, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Hunter Holmes McGuire, like you mentioned. Jumping back a little bit, what is your favorite sport?
Man,
Or
so
a couple of them. I don't know.
yeah, I've got a couple, I guess. I mean, really, I most enjoy rugby, I guess, because of the team of it and all the stuff I was talking about earlier. I really have been enjoying like the strategizing and the commitment and stuff that it takes to play a team sport and like to you get to like learn the game and it's like playing, I don't know, some kind of any like I mean the strategy is really fun, and knowing where to be on the court and how you can be most valuable and like playing your position. It's I forgot how fun that can be. So that's been really fun to do, and also just getting to like you go on these like weekend trips and stay in the hotel and we like drink beer in the lobby and all that. It's all really fun, It's, like I mean, like you were saying, it's like the camaraderie of it is cool. And then I also, when I was able-bodied, was really into like mountain biking and snowboarding and those kinds of things, hiking, anything sort of like nature oriented or like adrenaline rush oriented. So anything that gets me into those kinds of experiences, because I really like stuff that like turns my brain off for a while. And I find that if I am sort of like nervous that I might fall, I'm not thinking about anything else, or if I am somewhere really beautiful and like serene, I'm very much like present and then I'm not like not thinking about what I have to do the next week or what I messed up the day before or stuff you think about when you're trying to go to sleep. So I really enjoy kayaking and cycling because of that, because I really like that's how I take a break from my own thoughts, if that makes sense.
I totally agree. It's very meditative.
Yeah.
Your mind can wander as well, but I work a lot of stuff out. When I get out on my bike, it's just you and the bike and the engagement. And to your point about activities and events, That is just about the best thing. I do a lot of charity rides, and I do one every year for MS, for the MS Society. And we get down there, it's a 150-mile ride. So we get down there after 75 miles, and you're spent. Whatever the activity is, whatever you're doing, whatever your sport is, you put it all out there, and there's just no better feeling than hanging out with a bunch of people working for a really good cause who are also doing something physical. And you said turn your brain off. I totally get it, but that it's also mentally taxing because of the focus. You have to be focused. So those events where, again, back to this fellowship and that connection where you're also physically exerting yourself are just amazing.
Yeah, at the beginning of lockdown, I did a half marathon just out in my neighborhood around the block, basically. The mental game for that kind of stuff is bizarre. I really did not. It's really fun, and you're talking about the 150 miles, how rewarding that is. When you I'm in my rugby chair, which is basically just a different looking manual wheelchair that you push with your arms, and when you're tracking your miles, and okay, this loop is 2.5 miles, and I need to do this loop this many times, and you're doing all these stupid math problems to convince yourself that you're closer than you actually are.
That's a great point.
Well, if I just do this 3 more times, 3 is way less than 4, and I've already done 4, so I'm basically done. And,
and you're 2 miles in.
Yeah, right.
No, that's an excellent point. And I would say that events or activities like that are more mentally taxing than physically. Now, physically it's tough, but running a marathon, doing a half marathon, or doing 100 miles on a bike or something, just keeping yourself, like you said, in the game is difficult.
Yeah.
You want to bail, and you keep talking yourself back into it.
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool. It's one of the guys that I talked to on my podcast, a guy named Zach, was really, really good at verbalizing that experience. It was cool to listen to him, because I was like, yeah, dude, you're right. That's exactly what it feels like. That feeling of basically, even if you more or less or know that you can do something, but you've not actually literally done it, when you actually finish it up, you've really proved yourself wrong in a way, which is a really fun feeling to have, because you're I actually, that's cool. I did that. And even though, most people, you're probably yeah, I don't really know if I can do this, but some people maybe are more along the lines of yeah, I could do that. I just don't really feel like it. But if you actually do it, yeah, well, I wasn't just being cocky to myself. That's accurate. I could do that. That's cool,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's that middle ground where you wonder if you can do it, but you've done similar things in the past. So you say, let me just get after it. And I have enough faith in myself to know that I can grind through it, even if it sucks.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's the mental game for, I've never really understood endurance runners and stuff, but I totally get it. The sense of accomplishment is pretty bar none. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's really awesome, man, that you guys are bringing that to people who may not have had access to it before or didn't know about it, whatever the context. SPORTable is a really, really cool organization, and I would encourage everybody to check it out at sportable.org. Help any way they can. Maybe get in touch with you. What else have we left on the table that you want to hit?
Yeah, no, if anybody, you can literally shoot me an email. It's josh@sportable.org if anybody has any specific questions or is excited about something or wants to learn more or get involved. The website, me, social media is all SPORTable RVA. I'm not currently on social media, which has been great.
That's got to be nice.
I would recommend trying it if you haven't. But we are. Yeah, other than that, I wish it were a different time, because we'd have a lot going on in the fall, especially with our team sports would all be ramping up to start our competitive seasons and be traveling to tournaments and all that. But none of that's happening right now. So we are just doing what we can, staying positive. We'll start, a lot of those teams are going to start getting together and do conditioning and stuff outdoors. But until it's not safe to or until it is safe to have basically, direct contact with people, a lot of the team sports stuff is going to be tabled, unfortunately. So, we're having a lot of fun, though, with the programs that we are doing. So things have been great. And like you said, it's our 15th anniversary. We're, always looking for donations, basically. If anybody is interested, we've got something called the Army of Orange. And that's kind of like you fundraise for us through your network. So a lot of folks, like to do like those fundraisers on Facebook, like their birthday, or people maybe, again, like have like a party, or I've even seen people cut their hair, and you pay $20 or whatever to cut a strand of hair off, and that's like a big fundraiser for us. People, even one guy got married, and all the what would have been gifts were all donations to us. So people can get creative with the way they want to fundraise for us, or honestly for anybody else too. There's a lot of really important causes that need money right now. So get creative and fun with it.
That's cool, man. Well, you're really good at what you do, and you're a great spokesman for the organization. I would encourage everybody to check you out. The SPORTable Podcast. You can find it through the SPORTable website, again, sportable.org. Also Spotify, of course, and looks like you've got a number of different presences.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then all like the other ones that I don't really know who uses.
Google's podcast situation's a mess. Apparently they're working on it, but it's on Google. And anyway, you can find it through the website. You do a good job with that too, man. So well done.
Yeah, Spotify's making a big grab to try to get a lot of these people exclusive, huh?
Yeah, they really are. They just got Joe Rogan for like $100 million or something crazy.
Yeah, a couple that I listen to have switched, like last podcast on the left, and a couple others like you can only listen to there, which I don't know. I already pay for Spotify Premium, now I got to listen to ads on Spotify Premium.
One day you'll be there, Josh.
I think you'll be there sooner than I will.
I don't know about that. Well, cool, man. I enjoyed it. Always enjoy talking to you. And, thanks for what you're doing. Great job.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you so much for having me. And like I say, you guys, it's sportable.org, Sportable RVA on all the socials. And yeah.
Well, maybe I'll see you at the golf tournament if I don't talk to you before then, or see you on some virtual meeting or something.
Awesome, man. Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks so much, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Thanks again to Josh for coming by. You can find out more about Sportable at sportable.org. I appreciate Josh taking the time out of his busy schedule. As I mentioned, he's a podcast host in his own right, as well as all the activities he's got going on, not just with Sportable, but participating in all his activities. So thanks to Josh again. And feel free to hit them up directly, sportable.org, or you can email me at j@jsmack.com, or directly to the podcast, goodeyepodcast@gmail.com. Always looking for interview ideas, topic ideas, anything you're thinking about. If it involves stuff that people can learn more about, positive subjects, not necessarily positive though. It could be a negative subject as long as we have an intelligent discussion about it. Always looking for feedback. And I do appreciate the feedback that I've gotten so far. Good Eye Podcast is available online, goodeyepodcast.com, and on iTunes and on Spotify and on Google Podcasts. And it's an open forum for positive discussion. And when I say positive, once again, doesn't mean we have to be all happy and agree, but it needs to be intellectually honest and open. So that's all we're looking for. Till next time, thanks very much for listening, and try to look at life with your good eye.